Hey, what's going on? I'm Laura Davidson from Shure, and today I'm here, happy to be with Long McQuade to talk to you about podcasting. So what we're going to learn about today is just essentially some basics of podcasting, things to think about before you start, things to think about as terms of audio, where you're recording, how you're recording, and just have a conversation. So if you want to send questions, you can throw them in the chat, in the comments. We'll be monitoring them via Shure and Long McQuade. So just let me know what questions you have. Just a little bit about me so you know why I get to talk at you for the next little while here. I work in market development for Shure, which is essentially a really fun job that lets me go out and meet people and talk to you via live streams or hopefully in person someday. But basically, I get to tell you about the brand, tell you about our products, and just kind of get you on board with who we are. And Shure, we've been around for a hot minute since 1925. So a company that I'm super proud to be a part of and love to do my job every day. So enough about me. Let's talk about you guys and let's talk about podcasting because there's a lot to think about when you're podcasting. And normally when you go into a recording situation, you'd probably think about what mics do I need and what am I going to be recording? And with a podcast, you really have a lot of freedom and flexibility that sometimes in a studio recording we don't often have, or especially not in a live recording. But podcasts are all about the content. They're all about the conversation. They're all about the hook. They're all about what people are going to respond to and how they're going to react. And so things to think about when you're first getting started is, what should I call my podcast? What's my hook going to be? Because essentially you might come up with a great idea for a podcast, but if you don't have things that are going to keep people coming back, they're not going to subscribe, they're not going to like it, they're not going to tune in. And what you want to do with a podcast is build your audience. That's also something to keep in mind when you're starting a podcast. You're not going to come out of the gate and have millions of listeners. Maybe it'll just be your mom. Maybe it'll be your dad or your dog. Who cares? Just go out there and go live, because what matters is getting your voice out there and getting it heard. But before you do that, like I was saying, maybe think about what you want to talk about first. So can you talk about this thing for several episodes? Is it something that you've done some research on to see if there's a need for that knowledge? Do you have people who are actively trying to find that information? So once you've done that and you have some ideas there, you can definitely get started and just start rocking and rolling. So next thing you want to talk about is kind of come up with a description. So if you want to have people know what they're going to be listening to, get that hook out there, then also put together a short description. Think of it as your elevator pitch. So you can have it in print, or you could communicate it to people if you were doing live streams like this and you wanted to say, hey, check out my podcast, Songs from the Everyday, where we talk about everyday people and everyday songs, something like that. So exactly. Think about that. Think about what it's going to be called and find that hook. So once you have your hook, once you have your content kind of outlined, once you have a good idea for maybe 5 episodes, let's say, I'd like to say 10, just so in case it gets some traction, you're not having to catch up, you're getting a lot in the can before, then that's something to think about. So once you have that in place, then you can start thinking about some of the fun things like setup. So before we get into that, I'm just going to switch over here so you can see what's going on my screen. Make myself a little bit smaller here. So with podcasting, when you're choosing that hook, you want to make sure that you're giving them something to look forward to, choosing a name that reflects your content so that people can easily find it and that it's easily searchable. That's what's key here. You don't want people to have to go on the hunt because there's so many places that you can get podcasts and content. So just make sure that you make it searchable and memorable. And then record it, edit it, and distribute it. That's what we want to be thinking of and focusing on. So once you've done that, the next thing you want to kind of think about is, what's your setup going to look like? Are you recording at home? Are you recording in your car? Are you recording in a professional studio? Those things are what you need to take into consideration when you're buying your device that you're going to be recording into. Now, there's a lot to take into consideration because I work for Shure. We're going to focus a lot more on the products that we offer. But we also, there's a ton out there that you can use. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on Shure products just because that's kind of in my wheelhouse, but there's plenty out there as well. So from a mic selection perspective, you want to think about a few different things. So what are you trying to record? Are you trying to record yourself and somebody else? Is it just you? Are you going to have instruments in there? Try and think of ways that you can actively plan for that so that you're not having to adapt and find new gear on the fly. Think about the bigger picture. If this does expand and if my podcast does take off, what would I need? Can I have a setup that will be able to grow with me? So for example, right now, I'm using something called the MVI, which I will pick up very gingerly here and show you. So this is plugged, got my SM7B plugged into it, and there's something called a cloud lifter in between. And the cloud lifter gives it an extra boost so that the mic can have more signal. But what the MVI is doing is it's getting the microphone digitally or analog to go digital into my computer. That was not the best well-said way of saying it, but it's an interface essentially. So it's a single channel interface. It's great for what I'm doing right now. One person talking at my computer. So that's the MVI. However, you can also think of some different options. Like if you wanted to use the SM7B and you wanted to interview someone with another SM7B, you could think about a multiple channel interface. So what do I mean by interfaces? Let's look at this a little bit. Oops. So if we go over here, so for your recording setup, you want to take this into consideration as well. If you're going to be using what's called a DAW or a digital audio workstation, an interface is a great way to go because that'll let you plug in multiple microphones and multiple inputs. Whereas if you wanted to just keep it simple and just use your device, then you can use a phone and use a single microphone and use like our Motive app, for example. So when you're doing that and recording basics, there's some steps to take into place into consideration. But let's talk about a couple of different things. Back to this slide. So when you've determined what you're trying to record and you've determined if you want to go into your DAW or into your device, that's going to help dictate the type of microphone that you buy. So for example, I'm using our SM7B. Now this mic has been around for a long time and it's a fantastic mic, especially for the speech application, just because it lets you have a nice warm sound. You can get close up to the mic. It's a dynamic microphone, so it's going to reject sounds coming from the back and the sides. And it can take a lot of what's called SPL. So it's a great mic for this application. But if you don't want to go that quick, that out of the gate, we do have some great options. For example, there's this PGA 58 mic that I have. Sorry if that's blurry. That has a switch on it. And it comes with a bundle that we have. That's the MVI that I showed you and a set of SRH 240 headphones. So that's a great little kit for just doing a single one-off podcast or doing some recording because it has the mic, the headphones, and the interface to get into your device or your computer. We also have this guy. Let me pull up this slide real quick. Oops, we'll go here. Okay, so this is a picture of the whole family because we make a whole family of microphones called Motive. Again, there's other microphone options out there, but I'm a little biased when it comes to Shure, so that's why we're going to start there. So when you look at this guy here, this is an MV51. It's a large condenser microphone, and you can see on the front panel that you have complete control, but you can also control it using an app as well. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but right now I'm going to take a pause and look at some of these questions that are coming in because they are great. So first question is, how do we accomplish the type of sound that I'm putting out using a USB mic? So if you're going to use a USB mic, this is an excellent choice. The MV51 that just goes directly, you can see on the back, it's got a micro USB and then goes directly into your device or your computer. My setup, again, is an SM7B going into what's called a cloud lifter, which gives it an additional about 20 dB of gain, and also this MVI. And then that's going directly into my computer via USB. It also has a headphone out on the back, so I can monitor my audio in real time. You don't have to use the cloud lifter. It will give you enough signal, but we recommend that if you want to have a little bit more headroom with your gain. Okay, second question. these are great. When mixing on headphones versus monitors, what would be the more accurate method? That's kind of, in my opinion, more a personal taste, because when you are mixing on headphones, you have that more proximity, less other noises that are going to get introduced into what you're listening to. I just tend to like to mix on monitors because I get ear fatigue when I wear headphones, unless I'm wearing our SRH 1540s, which are extremely comfortable, seriously. But I think it's more a matter of preference. So if you want to hear more of the details, podcasting is really great to mix on headphones, especially because it is speech-based. So you can get in there when you're making your edits and edit out a little bit more of the breaths or the mouth noise and things like that. So that's something to think about when you're doing that. Let me just pull this back up so you're not staring at an empty screen here. Third question. Okay. Anything that would be good for singing that would also be good for talking? Yes, absolutely. All these mics that I've shown you so far are great for singing as well as talking. I use this to track vocals all the time. If you're looking for something that's going to be more suited for the voice, there's other side address condensers like our KSM32. It's a great microphone, very versatile mic. There's also a wonderful one that's called the SM27, which I would highly recommend. It's a side address condenser, and it's very useful in multiple applications: speech, singing, instrument mics. So totally affordable mic option that will work. And great. Okay, so I think I'm caught up on questions here, and it looks like L&M is actually answering the questions as we go too, which is fantastic, although I see something else coming in. So stop me if I've gone over something and you're like, hey, wait a minute, I didn't catch that, because I definitely want to be giving you all of the info. Something to also think about while Matt is writing me a message is your mic setup and your mic position. So right now you'll see I'm not too far away from the mic. I tend to eat the mic, but you want to be about 2 inches away from the mic. If you don't have something like the SM7B, which has this built-in pop filter, you'll want to use one of those. And they're not expensive. You can even make one. If you have a hanger and some pantyhose, you can make your own pop filter. And also, when you're using this, you want to make sure that you are not in an environment that is super echoey. So that's on this guy. If we go back, I'll pull back up the slide deck in just a second. Here we go. This is my first time using this super cool platform called OBS, and I'm trying to get used to it and botching it terribly, apparently. There we go. Okay. So when you place your microphone, what you want to think about is a few things. So you want to make sure that you're keeping a consistent distance. That's what it means by consistency is key. And also your gain staging. So a lot of times we plug in our mic, we get everything rocking and rolling, and then we totally forget to set our gain stage. We record the whole podcast, you get to the end, and either we can't hear you or it's totally clipped and we can't use it at all. Because you can do a lot in post-production, but fixing a clipped recording, not the easiest thing to do. So make sure that your gain is set at a proper stage. So you're hitting in the yellow, maybe the orange, definitely not the red. If you're hitting in the red, turn your gain down, okay? Avoid outside noise. Now, in this day and age when we are all sheltering in place, we have a lot of noise. I'm surprised my children haven't walked in yet, but they have been told to definitely not do that today. But dogs barking, if you have one that's prone to it, maybe move Sparky outside for the time being. Make sure you can get the most quiet environment that you're able to. Utilize a mic stand. That's very important so you don't have what's called handling noise. And then dynamic or condenser. We talked about this a little bit when I talked about the applications that you're going to be using. So if you want to record something that's a little bit more, has some more nuances, some more dynamic capabilities, an instrument, a condenser is a really good way to go. And especially in a controlled environment like this, where you're not prone to more sounds going into the mics than you want, a condenser is a really great solution there. Dynamic microphones, because of the way that they're built, are really good at rejecting sounds that aren't coming directly into the front of the mic. So dynamics are really good for live sound application. If you were to do an interview, it'd be a great one to do. You could kind of pass the mic back and forth. Or you can use something called our MV88 Plus for interviews, which I'll tell you about in just a second. So just making sure that you're choosing the right mic for the situation. So based on that, okay, so you've figured out what you want your podcast to be about. You have the hook, you have the name, got the catchy title, got the description, got a mic. Now what the heck do you do? So there's a million different ways to record a podcast. So I wish that I could say, just do this, this, and this, and then you're done. But the basics are all the same. You need to have something to record with, something to record into, a way to edit it, and a way to get it out to the world. Okay? So how you choose to do that can be up to you. It can be personal choice. It can be whichever platform feels the most natural to you. But let's talk about just some basics, okay? So when you're getting started with your podcast, open a new session in the platform of your choice. In this case, the step one that you're seeing there is our Motive audio app, which is available in the App Store. And that's what you use to control all of these mics that I've been telling you about, all these USB mics like the MV51. So you open up a new session, you check your gain, that's step 2. Excuse me. Make sure that it's hitting in the green and the yellow, but not the red. And then make sure you can hear it. If you're monitoring in real time, you can adjust your headphone level. Like on our MV51, let's see right here. Right there, that's your headphone level. And you also have a mute button here. But it's nice because you can toggle between your gain and your headphone level to adjust that accordingly without having to dig into the app or, unplug anything or adjust anything. It's just nice to have it right on the front. And the MVI has that same interface, which again, that's the interface that I'm using right now. So once you've checked that, you want to check your surroundings. So like I said, put Sparky outside, tell the kids to go play or put them in front of the tablet, which none of us are doing, of course. We're educating all of our children. And definitely make sure that your sounds and your situation are ready to be recorded in their best light. And then do a test. What does it sound like? Play it back. Don't just hit record and go. Okay, let me see some questions that are coming in. How about, what setup would you recommend for portable recording that might compare to the Rodecaster? The Rodecaster Pro is an amazing piece of kit. I love that mixer. I think that it's a very handy thing if you want to have multiple inputs in it. If you want to be mobile, there's a couple of different things you can do. This mic here is our MV88 Plus. Now this is just a single mic, but what it lets you do is plug in your phone into the device, into the mic, and you can control the polar pattern of the mic. So this is handy if you're taking it out to do a field recording. You want to have a nice stereo image. It's a stereo condenser mic. You can put it into monocardioid mode, tighten that pattern up to reject the sounds coming into the rear of the mic, and just do a quick vlog. And you can just take it out of the shoe mount, flip it around, and then put it into mono bidirectional mode to capture yourself and the interview subject on the other side of the mic. So this is a nice mobile kit that comes with everything you see here. So I know it's not going to compare to a multi-channel interface like the Rodecaster, but still very cool and very useful tool. Let me pull this back up so we can see this. All right, more questions here. So hopefully that answers your question. How about cordless mics for your guests? Cordless mics are great. Wireless mics are fantastic if you can. We make a ton of wireless, and a great system that's nice for just getting started is the BLX wireless system. Hopefully we can throw a link up to that. You can get wireless body packs with lavalier mics. Lavalier mics are these little guys. You've probably seen them a bunch before. This one is called the MVL. This one plugs directly into the headphone jack of your devices. So for example, I have a Samsung and I plug it into that when I want to do just a quick down and dirty recording of just me, my voice in an interview. Okay, what else? What kind of mic would I need to record on an Apple iPad for vocal and guitar? So you can use a number of different options for that. I really like the MV51 or a side address condenser microphone into an interface. That's the only challenge. If you're not using a USB mic, like one of these from our Motive line, then you will have to have an interface to get it into your computer, your iPad, your device, etc. So when using your iPad, you could use something like this, the MV51, set it on the desk, put in a pair of headphones so you make sure that it's sounding nice and you're getting a good blend between the vocal and the guitar, and then just hit record. It is a nice, warm sounding mic that can capture both sources simultaneously. Of course, you could capture them separately as well if you wanted to. Okay. What would be the disadvantage if you use Beta 58A or the SM58 or 57? There's not a disadvantage, honestly. So the Beta 58, the difference between the Beta 58 and an SM58 is its polar pattern. So polar patterns are how the microphone hears the sound or picks up the sound. So when you have a cardioid microphone like this one, the PGA 58, it's going to pick up in a heart-shaped pattern, hence being called cardioid. Supercardioid is just like that, except it's much tighter, so it has better off-axis rejection, and it also has a little bit of a boost in the high end. So Beta 58 captures a little bit more of the shimmer on the top end. So that's something to think about. If you had more of a rich voice, maybe you would want to check something, stick with your SM58 or your 57, but there's no disadvantage if you use the Beta 58. Please define gain. Is that part of the software? Yes, sorry, I kind of brushed over that. Let me see if I can pull this up here. I don't think I have a slide on it exactly, but all right, let's do this. Okay, so on here, step 1, you can see the screenshot of the Motive app. And that first thing that you're looking at is gain, and it has a little slider. Gain is how much signal the microphone is getting. Okay, so the higher you turn it up, the more loud your signal will be going to your device or going out to your listeners. So you want to make sure that you're adjusting your gain so that it's not too loud and it's not what's called clipping. You can see this next one. You can see, if you look in this GarageBand application here, or example, if this waveform here was to be going outside of these parameters, that would be called clipping. So if it's clipping, it's distorted, and you don't want that. So gain is how much signal you're getting to the mic, basically, to answer that. All right, what else do we have here? Would you use a dynamic mic in situations where you have a lot of background noise? Yes. So specifically, they said like a furnace or a fan. First thing to do is turn off the fan if you can. Get away from the furnace returns. You can put up blankets. You don't have to have fancy baffles or acoustic treatment in your room. You can do it affordably. Put up some pillows, put up some blankets. We've all done it. But a dynamic mic is going to be better for that as far as rejecting more noise and more signal that's coming in. Not signal, but more noise. So yeah, if you have that issue, if you have a noisy environment, a dynamic would be a great way to go. Okay. What else do we have coming in? Okay, all right. I think I got through all of those. Lovely. All right. So, just skip this over here. Got my cheat sheets here. Sorry for that. Okay, so once you've got your sound set up and all of your mics rocking and rolling and your environment sounding great, you also want to know what you're going to talk about when you get there. So not only the theme, but also, do you keep it loose? Do you have a script? If you're going to be interviewing somebody, do you send them the questions ahead of time? And this is all kind of personal preference that will then be determined by the type of podcast that you're doing. And it might evolve. Don't hold yourself to one thing and say, okay, that's it. I'm going to tell them all my questions and have a script and it's going to be the same format every time, because you don't know until you get going what it's going to really look like and what your listeners are going to respond to. So kind of have an idea though, if you want it to be more off the cuff or scripted. Now, when you do get up and recording and you have your setup going, there's also the idea of what do you do with that recording once it's captured? There's a number of different things that you can do and ways that you can edit things. So I wanted to show you just briefly the option that we have here from Shure. So you can edit your recording using our app, which is called the Motive app. Let me get myself out of here so you don't have to see that. So you can edit it right within the app. So you would call up the recording that you just created, and then you can As you can see, you can trim it here, you can cut it, and then you can share it directly within the app. But you also want to take into consideration, do you need to drop anything in? Do you need to overdub anything, which means go back and re-record sections? But do you want it to be natural? Do you want it to be really polished? Use plugins. If you're using your digital audio workstation, do you have reverb? Do you have compression? So you definitely want to make sure that you're thinking about that in post-production so that your podcast is sounding the best to your listeners once you've recorded it. Also, something to take into consideration is using background music, but you also want to make sure that it's royalty-free. Very, very important, because you don't want to be using other people's music without their permission. That is super uncool. Okay, so questions are coming in. Bring you back over here. I'm seeing Mac and iOS apps. Are there recommended non-Mac apps? Yes, there are. And I will show you actually, now that I say that. Just navigated away from this. But I will do this. So once you've edited all of your brilliance, you also need to determine what you want to do with it. How do you want to get it out into the world? Now there's a bunch out there. Frankly, it's a little overwhelming. I really like Anchor because you can record in it, you can edit in it, you can distribute it, share it. And there's a difference between sharing and distributing it. When you distribute it, you can actually get it across multiple channels and get it out to the world. Sharing it is just sending your mom an email link and saying, hey, check out my podcast. So with this, you can see there's a few choices. And again, this is not all of them, but there's some differences to take into consideration. For example, iTunes is not going to let you produce anything podcast-wise, but it will be a distribution platform. So there's a lot of different things to take into consideration, and I would recommend doing your research to see which user interface feels the most natural to you, whether it's the Motive app. If you think you like Anchor because it's super fun to just hit record and then publish it out to the world, great. If you don't want to do any editing. Just had a question come in about Audacity. Great platform. I think it's super easy to use, very user-friendly, and very powerful, a lot more powerful than some. So it's kind of personal preference, though. If you're going to feel the most comfortable using something that is just plug and play and requires a lot or no lifting on your end as far as editing, then Anchor is a good way to go. Audacity is a little bit more robust, but also still easy. Okay, this is a good question. What is the ideal length for an episode if you plan on doing a regular series? That has been highly debated, honestly. I think it depends on what you're talking about. If it is a series, I think studies have been done that have shown everything from 5 minutes to an hour are appealing to people. So I think you need to take a cue from your listeners, but I would start maybe with a 15-minute teaser episode and then lengthen it as it goes. But if you know that yours is an epic tome about, whatever you want to talk about, then you know that. But I would say 15 minutes would be a good place to start. Yes. Okay. Is the Beta 87A supposed to have a lot of handling noise? Excuse me. No, it is not supposed to have a lot of handling noise. So Cheryl can help you with that, getting you to support if need be. Cheryl is our fearless social media leader for sure. So if you see anybody commenting down there, that's her. So say hey to Cheryl. Okay. What do I think about? Yeah. Can an iPhone power up the MV51 without external USB power? It needs to be given power from the USB device or your computer. So you can use a USB battery pack kind of thing, but not sure what else we are asking there. But it doesn't have like a DC in, if that's what you're asking. It is USB powered exclusively. Cool. So you've got your podcast, you have your idea, your title, your name, your description. You know what mics you're going to be using. You know who you're interviewing. You got your setup nice and clean. You've recorded it, you've edited it, and you've published it. The next thing you have to do is promote it. So once you've gotten it out there, how are you going to spread the word? Don't get crazy with it. If you are like me and your people are on Facebook, go to Facebook and advertise it. If you are on Snapchat, if you're on Twitter, go where your people are. Don't try to reinvent the wheel and start up some new social media channel while trying to launch a podcast. Start where the people are. Tell them about it. Get them listening. Get them spreading the word. Give them a hook so that they keep coming back and keep telling their friends about it. And one other thing I forgot to mention is get some cool artwork for your podcast. Because remember, when you're going through Spotify, for example, trying to find those podcasts, that's what's going to come up as a little thumbnail. And that image is often what people remember when they think of your podcast. So it's an important one. So make sure it's reflecting you, the podcast, the content, so that people can easily find you, even if they're just doing it from a visual perspective. Okay, let's see. What other questions are coming in? Okay. So Ivan is asking, can iPhone power up the MV51? Oh, that's the same one Cheryl just asked me. So yes, the iPhone can power up the MV51. Yes, I think that was asked a little bit differently before. So yes, Ivan, that's definitely possible. Okay, so I think we've gone over the basics. Think about where you are. Think about what you're using. Think about where you want to put it out there into the world. What other questions can I answer for you about Shure? Because otherwise, I can show you some cool products here. We can talk about additional microphone technology, why I love the SM7B. I mean, we could go on for days with that one. Take a pause, get a drink. And it's also important when you're doing a podcast. Stay hydrated, my friends. Stay hydrated. So yeah, I'm going to pull this slide back up so we can see all of our family members from Motive. Again, plenty of options out there, but just to show you again what we were talking about, and I didn't show you our MV5 or our MV88, which I thought I had on my desk, but I don't. Well, that's frustrating. Normally I have everything right here within arm's reach, but the MV88, which is the one you see attached directly to the iPhone, is just like this guy, the MV88 Plus, but it plugs directly into iOS devices. So it doesn't come with this whole kit, plugs directly in. That's really great for mobile journalism applications. And you can do that just kind of a down and dirty recording. And then the small one, the ball on a stand, is called the MV5 condenser microphone. Great for conferencing, like conference calls, podcasting, music recording. It has a couple of presets on it and a headphone out on the back for monitoring your audio. Okay, let's see. Ray Walker is asking, telephone guests, how can I import audio from speakerphone? No, this has not already been asked. So you can do it a couple of different ways, Ray. So if you have a Rodecaster Pro, you can do that via Bluetooth. You can have them call in live and it will capture the audio from the phone. If you're doing speakerphone, that's a little bit trickier. If you want it to have that kind of phone sound, then you could just record it with a microphone. What I usually do is I set up a Zoom call and I have my person on the other end that I'm interviewing just record it with their phone if they don't have something like the MV88 Plus or the MV51. And then I have them send me the audio file. So that way I'm engaging with them over Zoom and I can see their reactions. But the audio file, I'm not beholden to whatever Zoom has captured. So that's something to think about there. Thomas wants me to show off the gear again. Absolutely. Okay, so just so we can play along at home. So this is the gear. Right now, my setup, just to remind you, I'm using our SM7B. It's a dynamic microphone. It's plugged into my MVI, which is a single channel interface. You can see on the back, I've got my XLR cable plugged in here. There's a headphone jack right here and a micro USB, which is going into my computer. I am also plugging it into what's called a cloud lifter to give it a little bit more headroom and gain. The SM7B inherently needs a little bit of a boost signal-wise, gain-wise, which we talked about earlier. You can power it using the MVI, and I should mention that the MVI can provide phantom power for condenser mics. It's providing phantom power for my cloud lifter right now. But you can use the SM7B directly into the MVI, and it sounds great. I just like a little more headroom. More of the gear. This is my other favorite child. This is the MV88 Plus. Of course, right now I don't have my USB-C cable to show you how it plugs into the Android, but don't think. Yeah. Good Lord. All right. So normally you plug your phone in directly here. And then the microphone can switch around on the shoe mount here. So you could be doing like a field recording, capturing the sounds out in front. It's a stereo mic, so you can have a nice wide stereo image. Switch it up like this to do a quick vlog post, put it in monocardioid mode, so it's very directional polar pattern. And then switch it up again like this. Open up the tripod. This is a Manfrotto Pixie tripod that it comes with. Nice little Shure branding on there. Sit it on your desktop, and you could record yourself and your interview subject, because if you see on the mic, it's a stereo mic, left and right, left, right. So it's just a nice kit to have because it's kind of almost like having 3 different microphones in your backpack. It all comes down, comes apart, and you can put it into a little neoprene sleeve that it comes with, and it packs up really nicely. And then the MVL is this little guy here. Lavalier mic. Ooh, tiny wonder. Omnidirectional. Wow, I cannot get this in shot, sorry. That clips right onto you. And has a little TRRS connector for getting into your headphone, smartphone jack. Okay. Can I use, Sarah Jane is asking, can I use one microphone for 2 people? It's not recommended unless you were using this one, which I just mentioned. So you put it in bidirectional mode and sit on opposite sides of the stereo mic. You can, if you are close, if you're practicing social distancing, I wouldn't recommend using one mic for both of you, but definitely couldn't use the SM7B for 2 people who are talking at once, just because it is a very directional mic, meaning it's going to capture what's right in front of it and reject the rest. The MV51 would be more appropriate for that situation. If you were to put this, let's say, on the desktop in front of you, and then have one of you here and one of you here, side by side, I don't know if you can translate that with what I'm doing, then that would work. So it's possible, but whenever possible, have a mic for each person who is being interviewed. All right. What else? Okay. Does MV88 only work with Apple phones? The MV88, yes, only works with Apple devices. The MV88 Plus works with iOS devices and select Android devices. Okay, so you want to check and make sure that it works with your device first. We have a compatibility page on our website. Okay. Ooh, there's a lot more questions here. Sorry, I'm slacking. All right. Are there any courses you can recommend for slowly learning this wealth of technical info you are sharing, and where one can be on site for evaluation? Any thoughts on Blue Yeti? Okay. So that's a lot of questions, but to answer some of them, we have a great wealth of knowledge on our site. If you go to shure.com, you can find us on YouTube. We do live streams and webinars all the time showcasing how to learn about the basics of microphones, for example. There's a microphone 101. Cheryl can help you find that link, hopefully. And I'm not sure about the on-site for evaluation question. That would be something you would probably want to hook up through Long McQuade if they offer that. Getting that advice one-on-one from somebody who can help you figure out what your setup's going to be. Blue Yeti, it's a decent microphone, condenser microphone. I found it has a little bit too much handling noise. Hence, I like a more controlled environment like this or like this, which is not going to be super boomy and can still sit on the desktop. So great form factor. Which is the best voice setup on GarageBand to record? Ooh, that's personal taste right there. Honestly, I open up a new track or open up a new session in GarageBand, and I just go to the one that has the little microphone icon to record with a mic, set up 2 tracks, and start recording, making sure to turn off the metronome first, because for some infuriating reason, GarageBand insists on keeping that as a default setting. And then you can edit it in post, but you want to make sure when you're recording in GarageBand, you don't want to record with plugins on your voice going into the recording, because then they will be on that recording. So save all the nice compression, reverb, and EQ for the back end when you're editing. Okay. Is there a better way than a pop filter to reduce wind noise? Yes. Pop filters aren't going to really help you with wind noise, but there are these things that Rycote makes that we have for the MV88 Plus and for some of our shotgun mics. And they are filters that block out the wind noise specifically. So they're called wind jammers. And they slide right over the microphone like a sleeve. So essentially just like this filter here, but fuzzier. So it deflects more of the wind. And they are available for our products. You can find those on Shure.com. For MVL, do you have a TRS to TRRS adapter? This is to plug the mic into an iPhone. This is a TRRS, straight up. But if you want that plug to get into the Lightning, then I think that's what you're asking, then yes, you can. But we don't make that. Also about MVL, I believe. Okay. Oh, so aside from quality, how does it compare to the Boya BYM1? I haven't tried it personally. I've looked online to compare the reviews. It seems like ours definitely, quality-wise, durability-wise, it's holding up and has a little bit more of a brightness to it. That's just what I've seen, but I have not experienced it personally. This mic arm, of course, I don't have the box. It's a K&M mic stand, but I do not have the model. I will get back to you and answer that later. How about that? What else? Let's see what else. Thanks for all these great questions, by the way. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone to do it. This is how I'm answering your questions. In case you're like, what is she looking at down there? Okay. All right. Okay, just answered the mic arm question. Any other questions about podcasting in general, or we can talk gear all day. I love it. There's also something to think about too. If you're not comfortable with production, or if you just want to have somebody do all the heavy lifting for you, tell you what to do, tell you how to record it, take it from you, mix it, master it, and then get it out into the world, there are a ton of production companies that can do that for you. And one of my favorites is called Heartcast Media, based in Washington, D.C. There are many out there, but Molly Ruland is a good pal, and she does a great job. So definitely recommend that if you don't want to record on your own and you want to be able to have somebody do all the things for you. There are options out there as well. I didn't mention that because I'm thinking you guys are going to want to all do it all yourselves. Okay. Okay. Question. Oh, sorry. So yes, digital SLRs. We make 2 solutions for that, as well as some shotgun mics. But if you're recording into your SLR, you can use what's called a shotgun mic that would sit in the hot shoe mount on the top of the camera and allow you to capture the sound in real time. We make something called the VP83 and the VP83F. And that allows you to record the 83F to a micro SD card that goes right into the microphone itself. So you can do that. And you would just, again, put it into the hot shoe mount. It gets the power from there. And then you can capture additional audio on your digital SLR. Because as we know, the mics are not always awesome in there. Okay. Where do you post list? Okay. Blog-centric forums. I'm sure that there are blog-centric forums to post or promote your podcast. I personally just go to my social media channels and put them out there. If you do find blogs, once you have your podcast recorded, once you know what your topics are going to be, continue to search the internet all the time. Google it, find out what people are talking about in relation to that subject. And that way you can figure out where they're going to find the information and maybe post there. Consider doing some ads if you are going on the more professional level. But otherwise, you can just post to where your people are. So that's why I was saying social media. If you have an e-newsletter database, you can post there as well. How do I get quality audio for live streaming as a DJ? Oh, this is a deep one. So if you're wanting to live stream as a DJ, there are a couple of different things you can do. Right now, I'm using something called OBS to stream. So I'm going through Facebook, but I'm using OBS so that I can do things like changing this and having, the picture-in-picture action there. And you can do transitions and scenes and multiple camera angles and shoots. The audio, though, you definitely want to make sure that you're using a separate interface and not relying on going directly through the Facebook streaming, for example. The audio resolution is not high enough there, so you'd be beholden to whatever the Facebook stream bandwidth is. So there's a number of different ways to go down that rabbit hole. We're just going to leave it at that for now. What are some of my favorite podcasts and why? I really liked, I really like a lot of them, but one of my friends just came out with a brand new podcast from the Sound Girls organization. And Sound Girls is an amazing group for women who are women in the industry who do sound, who run sound, live sound, studio sound. It's just killer. So that's my new favorite one that I'm listening to right now. But I just now totally blanked on the one that I just devoured. There was one about the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist, and it was so good, and it was put out by Boston Public Radio. Oh, it's called Last Scene. I like all the like murder mystery ones and anything with suspense, because I feel like if it builds you up and leaves you with a cliffhanger, that's my jam. That's why I like that. Okay. Can you get a similar sound to SM7B with an AT2035 using EQ? I know dynamic is opposite to condenser. Good question. I haven't tried it. The 2035 is a great mic, and I think it's a lot more brighter by nature, but EQ can do a lot. EQ, compression, mic pre's, whatever you're going through. But, if you're trying to make it sound like this, get an SM7B. No, I don't know. Yes, you can probably, but there's nothing quite like this. I can't explain it other than that. Okay, question just came in. Sorry, just joined. Is there a way for my band to perform live while streaming live? How do we handle the lag? Yes, there are. I'm not going to go into that here, unfortunately, though, because there's like all these things you can do, all these platforms. I mentioned OBS, there's Ecamm Live, there's a million others that people could tell you about for days. Go on the forums for that, because people are doing this so much more often right now. The info is changing daily, even hourly, as far as what the best third-party platform is for streaming. But yes, you can stream your band. Yes, it can sound awesome. I just did a live stream on last Friday night with some partners of ours called HWP Co. It was an 8-hour Facebook live stream, and they had band after band after band, and these bands sounded like they were in the same room as you. So check that out. I'm sorry I don't have more info on the exact platforms. I am working for Shure, so I don't have time enough to play with these fun things. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? I just flipped back over to the L&M question feed here. Oh, Cheryl's typing something. These are such great questions. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What is an excellent mic stand for the SM7B? Issue of tipping. Yes, I have one. Stand by. This is why I love live streams, because I can just go and pull out all kinds of fun things. This guy right here. This is also a K&M stand. But it can adjust up, has a nice sturdy tripod, and can hold the heft of the SM7B. Again, I will find out these model numbers for you. K&M has been kind enough to send these my way. So I will get you some model numbers and put them in post live stream so that you can play along at home. But those are my faves. But if you don't have something like this, you can use a number different. We make one. This little guy. And this can hold an SM7B too. It's just a little tippier, but it's remarkably sturdy. Okay. Any other questions for me? This has been so fun. Cheryl's typing one. Oh. They want a tall stand. Okay, so if you want a tall stand, I would recommend, honestly, it's not as heavy as it looks. It's just a little top heavy. So if you can get one with a round heavy base, like a weighted base, or anything with a tripod stand, like this one, I definitely would recommend getting a straight stand as opposed to a boom arm if you can. That's going to decrease your tippiness and your top heaviness, and it's a better solution for that. Cool. So hopefully this has been informative for you out there trying to start a podcast. The main thing is, don't be afraid to start a podcast. There are so many ways to get your message out there now, whether you're going to live stream it or you're going to podcast it and record it for posterity. Just get it out there. Have a plan, execute towards that plan, and go live. But I definitely think that having the courage to do that, it's a lot easier to come by these days because we all are hopefully embracing our creativity. So definitely put it out there. Don't be afraid, and let your voice be heard. And Shure has, again, tons of things that we can do to make that much easier for you. So if you wanted to get into that, we make our Motive line of digital microphones, USB microphones, the MV51, MV88, the MVL, which is a lavalier, the MVI, the MV5, and the MV88 Plus. I know it's a lot of letters, alphabet soup there, but go to Shure.com and check out Motive, MOTIV, so that you can see all of the things that we have to offer to make your life easier from podcasting. Or go with big guns here, get the SM7B or the SM27, which I also mentioned. Great side address condenser mic, wonderful for starting up your podcast and getting up and off the ground without spending a ton of money. So if you have any questions, post. I will be on this webinar. I'll be on the page. So if I can answer anything for you, I will pull up those stand recommendations and hopefully get those questions answered for you a little bit after the stream. But yeah, if there's anything else that you have, let me know. I'm just checking one more time in here. Thank you so much, by the way, to Cheryl for moderating with me and playing along at home for sure. And also thank you to Matt from L&M from Long and McQuade, I should say, for moderating on his side. And thank you for all of these amazing questions. Again, if you want to find out more information, go to Shure.com. Check us out. We have great videos, great resources, great training opportunities. And I appreciate you so much for tuning in. And thanks a lot. I'm Laura Davidson. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.
Long and McQuade, where the music begins.